I'm Mitch Ackles, the president of the Hedge Fund Association, and I'm really happy today to be speaking with Anthony Scaramucci, the founder and co-managing partner of Skybridge Capital. He is also the author of 4 books, The Little Book of Hedge Funds, Goodbye Gordon Gekko, Hopping Over the Rabbit Hole, and Trump, the Blue Collar President. His many achievements include serving as the White House Communications Director briefly in July 2017.
Fired unceremoniously, but that's okay, Mitch. You know,
well,
you're a polite guy, so you don't have to mention that.
I believe it resulted in short time frames being measured in Scaramucci's.
I think they should be, don't you?
I think
11-day units of time are now referred to as Scaramucci's.
I agree.
And you can use it in a sentence. It could be Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister of the UK, she lasted 4.1 Scaramucci's.
See?
I think
it's a calculation
yes,
one can make.
It's a good use.
You've helped.
I also have another book coming out, which will be coincident to our SALT conference, May 21st. I'm launching a book called From Wall Street to the White House and Back. And it's just a selection of stories related to what happened to me at the White House, how I got back on Wall Street, what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried, how we worked ourselves through that problem as well. So it's a fun book.
Well, talking about SALT, obviously SALT's overall mission is to drive prosperity and innovation by connecting investment capital with intellectual capital. Now that's the PR speak of it, and obviously I speak the PR. But SALT began in Las Vegas, and I've got to attend in those years. Obviously it was an extraordinary start. Now you've teamed up with iConnections. How has that been working out? It's also in New York City now. Yep. What's your view on how SALT has evolved?
So it's a really good question. So let me bring up the iConnections piece, because my good friend Ron Biscardi runs a great event in Miami. Among other events, he has something called iConnections. It's a great software matching capital allocation service.
Sure.
And so we teamed up with them. We bought a piece of his business. He helps us with our conferences. We help him with his conferences. And as you know from our experience together, I'm more of a collaborator than a competitor. So if there's other conferences out there that would like our help, we want to be helpful. And if they can help us, we'll reach out to them. SALT, interesting history, started in Vegas, did quite well in Vegas, 09 to 19. COVID blocked us from going to Vegas in 2020, and believe it or not, even into 2021, we weren't able to get these venues open. And so we made the decision to move the conference to New York. We put it at the Javits Center for 2 years, and we moved it over to the Glasshouse last year. We'll be doing it at the Glasshouse this year, but it's frankly too small for us now because the conferencing, if you will, is returning, and the SALT fingerprint, if you will, is a bigger fingerprint, or footprint is bigger. And so I will potentially go back to Vegas, or we may go to the Bahamas with it. We did a crypto event, obviously very famously, down at the Baha Mar.
Yep.
And so I'm not exactly sure what's in store for SALT 2025, but I imagine it'll be bigger than what we're going to do here in New York for SALT 2024.
Aside from that, obviously, one of the things that I read about you, and I'm going to pivot back and forth because it's you and I've known you for a long time, between conferences and other stuff. At one point, I read a quote from you that you had ruled out working on reality shows. You've done a few. So of those shows that you've done, you know, in that side of your career, which one was the real most challenging one to you? Was it the World's Toughest Test?
Yeah, well, I think the Special Forces World's Toughest Test was by far the worst.
You got set on fire.
I'm 68 years old. 58 years old when I did it. I'm 60 now. That was brutal. You know, they pushed me out of a helicopter. They tried to drown me in a car. They set me on fire, made me run out of the house, had to roll around on the ground. They had me doing a vertical drop, a 170-foot vertical drop, where I was tied to these bungee cords. I was like, my God, I hope someone tied this thing appropriately, because here I come.
Right.
And it was grueling. We had to push Mike Piazza and I were on the same team, the American baseball player, the Hall of Famer, New York Met. We had to push a Jeep 750 yards in the middle of the night across the desert. And it didn't start, the Jeep. And I got to tell you, my heart rate was probably, 200 pushing that Jeep. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
And you stayed on.
Stayed on. I was 6 days on.
Right.
The course was 10 days. I'm proud to say this. It probably sounds like humble bragging, but it's not. It's bragging. I'm proud to say this. I got exhausted it at the end of day 6. But when I left, I was the last civilian.
Right.
Meaning there were just professional athletes or Olympic athletes left in that tent. And so I'm proud at the age of 58, now 60, but 2 years ago at 58 to have done that. And I became very good friends with the hosts of that show. So I see those guys all the time. And I lived in the Big Brother house for a while. I've been asked to do some other shows. You probably read that I've said no to a few of these shows.
Yes.
As an example, you can't do Dancing with Stars if you want to stay married. I sort of feel like I can't do that. Survivor, I'd have no bid for. I was offered The Amazing Race. I've got young kids. I can't be away for that long. But, listen, I don't rule out anything in my life. I mean, these things are fun. And I think it's enjoyable. And also, I tell people, your president in 2017 to 2021 was a reality television star. So people that scoff at reality television, it is now a very big part of our culture. And I think it would behoove people to understand it.
Well, a lot of people enjoy it. I mean, the reason it's so popular and so prolific and so many shows are created on all these various themes.
And I'm friends with most of the sharks on Shark Tank.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
It's that time again. And, we're talking about things that were challenging to you. You've worked in the White House. We're in an election year again. Of the choices in front of us, what are your views?
Well, I don't want to make the show overly political because it's for the hedge fund industry, and so when I start opening my mouth, I'll be upsetting 50% of the people. But
all right.
I will just say this to people: I worked for Donald Trump. It wasn't just the 11 days in the White House. I did work for him on the campaign.
Sure.
In addition to that, very close personal friends of mine, like Secretary Esper, General Milley, Mark Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff for the Pentagon. John Kelly, close personal friend. Actually, he's the one that fired me. Trump didn't have the guts to fire me. He had Kelly fire me. There's 40 of us that are reasonably very close that have experienced working for Donald Trump when he was the American president. And we are concerned, and we've told the American people he is not well suited to be the American president. He doesn't have the curiosity, the mental capacity. He doesn't think about the interests of the United States the way an American president should. And he's a very, very dangerous guy. But we're in a very big cultural war right now. We've got issues at the border. We have wokeism. We have issues in a city like this as it relates to urban crime. And so we're presenting two choices. And I understand why some of my fellow Americans think that Donald Trump may be the right choice to return to the White House. But I'm telling you, he's not. And I would prefer, even if I don't love all of the policies of Joe Biden, I would prefer somebody that respects the institutions of our system and the institutions of our democracy over somebody that definitely doesn't do that. And so I'll be voting for Joe Biden. I'll be working for Joe Biden in the fall to explain to people what we saw when Mr. Trump was president and the danger of that. And listen, there's people out there that think Mr. Trump is good for their business. I can tell you categorically he is not, because he will disrupt elements of the rule of law in the country, and he's reckless. And he told Mark Meadows that he didn't care about the Constitution. He was ready to disavow it, try to keep himself in office, even though he knows he lost the last election to Joe Biden. And so this is just a very dangerous guy, and this is not the type of guy at this hour of American history that we need to return to the White House. And as I said, if you don't like Joe Biden's policies, you can suffer through a few years of bad policy over picking somebody of this kind of character. Wow. Okay, so there you have it. I've probably upset 50% of the people, particularly these Wall Streeters that are buying catheters and walkers from Fox News commercial interruptions. I'm sure I've upset them, but that's fine.
Well, the good news is I don't have to ever do anything you have to do.
I like having an opinion.
I get to be nonpartisan. But in my viewpoint, we actually need someone in the executive branch, just like you would need someone in any position of power, who has some responsibility and belief that they need to fulfill what that role entails. So if that role is serving the American people and doing certain things on their behalf, the focus is them, not you.
Yeah.
So in my role as president of the Hedge Fund Association, my focus are our members, not me.
I think it's well said. I mean, but it wouldn't just be President Trump. There's a whole class of politicians now that are there to serve their personal interests and to be absorbed in themselves and to pursue personal power as opposed to serving the American public. And I think that that's a a danger. But the good news about America, we have a tendency to always swing back.
Yes.
And so we've swung way over the edge here. I think the crime, the petty crimes that are here in this city, the migrant situation, the bail reform, I think these things have overscaled themselves now, and I think moderate people, normal people, are going to push very hard to get more order in the city and more respect for our laws and for the property of people that have worked very hard to earn the property. And so I think over time we'll get back to a comfortable middle, but it's just not going to be in this election.
You and I love the world of finance and Wall Street, but we also share some other interests. And I'm going to pivot to one of those questions now that you and I have talked about over the years. I got to moderate you last year at NYU at a wonderful fireside chat, and we got to talk about a topic that I think we both talked about before, which is aliens. And obviously we've seen some changes in the way our US government has been working on disclosure. There have been hearings in Congress. One of the things that you said at NYU, which stuck with me, was that, you know, whatever's happening and whatever will happen, one thing that the people in the audience need to realize is they shouldn't be worried. So why am I still worried?
Well, I think people have a general tendency to worry about the unknown, right? We're biologically designed to fear our death. We're designed to survive on the earth for as long as we possibly can. But yet there's a natural course of life and death on earth. I mean, that's really one of the base definitions of life. And so the reason I'm not worried is that whatever we've observed, whether it's extraterrestrial phenomena or it's actually technology that is homegrown and potentially American technology, I don't think we need to worry. And what I would say to you is that a species that would have to be innovative enough to arrive on this planet from some other part of the universe. Now, right. You know, we look at the universe and we see the distance and we say, okay, well, Einstein said we can't go faster than the speed of light, so how is it possible that anything could reach us? But then when you think about, you know, the laws of physics and so many things we don't know about physics, there might be wormholes in the universe or things like that.
Sure.
That you could pass through.
We've all seen the movies.
Okay, you could pass through. And but I'm here to tell you that if we're a level 0 species in terms of where we are, in terms of our ecological, economical, physiological development. Okay, and ecological, I mean that because we're burning a lot of carbon and it's having a disruption in the atmosphere. At some point, we're going to move off of carbon into something that's more solar related or non-carbon supportive. And then you're going to keep moving. And if you get 300, 400, 500,000 years from today, if you think about the exponential growth of human technology, by the time we get there, we'll probably be evolved in a different way than we are now, if we can get there, if we don't destroy ourselves with a nuclear weapon or something like that. But if we can get there, you're going to be, I think, a species of peace, right, and a species that's thinking at a higher level and a greater level of adaptation as it relates to the universe. Which is likely
if they are visiting who's visiting us now.
Yeah, they have reached that, and so or likely have reached that, and so therefore, I wouldn't worry about it, and I would implore people not to worry about it. I understand the curiosity about it. I always have an alien panel.
I usually have my next question.
I have a fireside chat.
You've talked to
I'm working on a few
your salt
people.
experts have talked to some pretty high-profile, very interesting and uniquely positioned people on this topic for every salt that I've attended.
I mean, you know, Gary Nolan, who we had last year.
Yeah.
I think it's the most viewed YouTube panel in the history of SALT. And of course, Gary was talking about his experiences in the search for extraterrestrial life. If I'm saying that properly, you have to forgive me, I'm Italian kid from Long Island, so I never pronounce the English language properly.
That's fine.
But I would say to you that Gary believes it. Gary's explained why he believes it. Mm-hmm. There are people in the American government that try to decry it. There are others out there like David Grush, who has filed all of the right protocols from a whistleblower perspective to explain what he's observed.
Sure.
And so, you know, I'm in a position here where I have great intellectual curiosity and some knowledge of the topic. And obviously there's some things about topic that, because I worked in the American government, I'll keep to myself. But I want people to at least be aware of it. But more important than being aware of it, I don't want them to be overly concerned about it.
So this year, who is the speaker? You're still working on it?
I'm working on it. I mean, fully disclosed, we've asked David Grush to come speak. If he doesn't come, I have a few other people on the list, but he would be the one that I would want to have our delegates hear from.
I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, listen, we're always thrilled to be a part of your association, and I love our conversations both on and off the air, and
Absolutely.
I appreciate being here. And I saw the little alien go by.
Did he?
Okay, can't confirm or deny if they look like that, Mitch.
Well, they're meeting us in the lobby, I heard. Thank you very much.